It is my understanding that Mr. Kendrick has 3 previous felony convictions, none of them being violent convictions. That is my understanding. And as we know, that is one of the factors in this court considering the bond. The second factor I'd like to address, which is extremely important to me, is community ties. And this is important to me as an attorney because Mr. Kendrick has family support. He has a lot of support. And not only are they here today, but they have been in court with him almost every day for the past 2.5 years. And I think that shows that he has a support system standing behind him. And he has a lot of accountability and responsibility to do the right thing if he's given the opportunity to be given a bond. This is a jail incident, Your Honor, and I come before you a lot, and it's very sad to say, but normally when I pick up a client who I can't get a bond for immediately, that's a double client because they're gonna get a jail case. It's almost inevitable, and especially when you have been sitting in jail for 2.5 years for something that you essentially are found not guilty for. And had he not been there, this would not have happened. He has no reason, I don't even think he has an ability to contact the victim in this case if he is granted the opportunity to be given a bond. Also, I would like to talk about the aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and riot charges. I did not represent Mr.